to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Connor Williams, joined by Aaron from Proxima Jornada. And today we are going to be talking about the potential of signing Ruben Vinagre, who was at Wolves, then went to Sporting, and from what I can gather, has spent a loan there, and then his contract was made permanent, and they're looking to sell him on already. First of all, Aaron, tell me a little bit more about him. Obviously, people will know about him from his Wolves days, but for those who might have missed him at Wolves, what type of player is he like?
So he's an attacking fullback, a wing back, someone that likes to get up the pitch. That part of his game hasn't really been called into question. It's more so his sort of defensive side of things. But just on the actual sort of what's going on with him at the moment, contractually, because I've got quite a bit of a cold at the minute. A bit of confusion regarding why they're looking to get rid of him. So basically what happened was he was loaned to Sporting last season, and he was an obligation to buy if they made it to the knockout stages of the Champions League. Now, when he first arrived, he was arriving at the club to be the first choice left back. So their thinking, which makes sense, even in retrospect, is that if he does well, establishes himself, that helps the team sort of progress, and then they end up making it to the knockout stages of the Champions League, then it's brilliant. The idea will have been that he'll have contributed to that. It didn't really work out that way. They still managed to qualify for the knockout stages of the Champions League, but at this point, he'd already became second, third choice left wing back rather. And then obviously because they made it to the knockout stages, it was sort of out of their hands, and they had to pay Wolves that 10 million euros or around that. And then even midway through the season, it was already sort of known that as soon as this window would open, they'd be looking to move him on. So that's where I think the confusion has come from, is like that they've actually purchased him recently and are now looking to sell. This was something that's been sort of sorted since they qualified for the knockout stages. But yeah, I suppose we'll move on to how and why.
Yeah, no, cheers for clearing it up though, because when I read the story at first and I figured it, I saw that he'd gone permanently, I was a bit confused as well. And it does bring that bit of dread in for fans then, if you're like, oh, why didn't it go so well at the former club? Speaking of how well it went for him, what were his performances like? How many games? Did he get many games, many goals, assists?
No, not particularly. He started well. It actually looked like quite a promising signing, because he was sent on loan to Olympiacos, where he didn't play at all. He didn't really establish himself. I think he played twice. And that was with a Portuguese coach in charge, Pedro Martins. So I think that sort of relationship of, go there, play in a team that had a few Portuguese players in it at the time that are known for having a sort of Portuguese influence, but couldn't really establish himself. And then he went to Famalicão on loan in the Primeira Liga, and he actually performed very well. It's probably one of the most consistent periods of his career so far. I think he played all but 2 games in the Primeira Liga, and he was able to showcase the things that he was good at, sort of going forward. But the defensive sort of worries were always still there. Then I think Sporting come in for him, and I think they've lost someone in Nuno Mendes, who ended up going to Paris Saint-Germain. So they're thinking, right, well, this is someone who's played in the Primeira Liga, who's good going forward. Sporting typically will have a lot of the ball, so there'll be less sort of defensive work for him to do than at Famalicão. And yeah, he started the season sort of in the team. It was only really until the game against Ajax, they played Ajax in the Champions League. I was actually at that game as well, and they lost 5-1. And he started the game, and Anthony, I think it was the winger at the time, just absolutely sort of demolished them. He was all over the place. And at this time, it wasn't really so much he was playing as a wing back in a sort of back 3. It was like a real back 5. They were sort of penned in, and he weren't allowed to really move up the pitch. The spaces sort of in behind were very exploited. 1v1, he didn't look very comfortable. It just wasn't a great night, to be honest. And he was actually taken off at half time. Now, games like that happen when some of the best fullbacks, some of the best players in the world will have afternoons where they just weren't at the races. But it felt like sort of after that game, maybe Ruben Amorim, the manager, had lost faith in him, lost trust in him. Still sort of working with him, obviously, on a daily basis in training. But after that, I mean, if you go back and look through his appearances, it's very patchy. It's might be a game in the cup. It might be coming on 20, 25 minutes to go. And at this point, they're not actually stacked with wing backs. Nuno Santos, who was brought in primarily as a winger, was playing as like a wide man, was actually playing over him in that left wing back position. And then Matheus Reis as well, who had a really surprising season. I don't think many saw him, especially Sporting fans, having as good a season as he had. So there was sort of 2 players ahead of him when at the start of the season it looked like that sort of left wing berth may have been his. So yeah, it felt like once he was sort of out the team, it was damaging for him. That game was quite damaging for him. And that was pretty much it. Then it looked like his days were a little bit numbered. And he, as I say, he was still able to, when he did play, sort of show what he could do. He's still only 23 years of age, but he hasn't really established himself for a long period at any club he's been at. He's been bounced around quite a bit. So I think if he is to come to Everton, it won't be with Vitaly Mykolenko there. It won't be as a first choice option. Perhaps Lampard is looking to maybe see Everton play a bit more progressively this season, as to the way that he did last season when he came in. And it's someone who is, good going forward, especially with the sort of three central defenders there to cover. But yeah, I don't think he'd ever really play if Everton were to play a back 4 as like a conventional left back, and up against sort of the top sides and the top wingers, where you really need someone who's got that defensive nous. You can't see him being much of a plus there either.
Yeah, well, I've already got dread of Mo Salah absolutely ripping him apart, then in the derby if he comes already. Do you think that that game with Antony, ultimately, do you think that is why they are looking to sort of sell him on now, sort of get him back out the door, or is it more than just one bad game and a loss of faith?
No, I think it's more than that. I just think that was the catalyst, if you will, because obviously they've loaned him in good faith. And, although Sporting went into that season with quite a slender squad, them qualifying for the knockout stages of the Champions League wasn't like the most impossible thing you've ever heard of. They were in a group with Borussia Dortmund and Ajax and Besiktas as well. So you're probably looking at them thinking, they could finish third, they could even sneak second, which is, eventually what they managed to do is qualify. So when that clause was sort of put in, it was with the thinking that this is a good player, a player that's got the potential to sign permanently and be part of the club's long-term plans going forward. But as I say, in football, things, often don't just, it doesn't work like that. Things don't go to plan. And I mean, we see that with Everton sort of time and time again. And obviously I'm on here speaking as a sort of journalist that specialises in Portuguese football, but I'm also an Evertonian, so I fully understand. I can see it sort of from both sides. I'm trying not to be too despondent about it, because I do think the signing does have some positives. As I say, if you're looking for someone to come in and take the load off of Mykolenko at times and perhaps play, in early rounds of cup games, and someone like Vinagre will be on like pennies compared to some of the wages that Everton will have, and some of the Premier League wages he will not be on a lot. I think I saw in the newspaper in Portugal that we'd be looking to pay 100% of his wages. It wouldn't be a problem for Everton, even sort of in the state that we're in. So yeah, I think it was more just the fact that once he was out of the side and once the players that came in to replace him had started performing, you're sort of trying to get him into the side to make sure that it doesn't look like you've wasted money, whereas that just doesn't happen. If players are playing well, they can't be dislodged. And then when you do get your opportunity, you've got to go above and beyond. And when he did come in, he didn't really do that. He's showing highlights. It's the same thing that he did really at Wolves. If you ask Wolves supporters, what's he like? There's that clip of him, I think he up against Kyle Walker, but he absolutely dazzles Kyle Walker. He puts him in knots, which not many players do. His close control and his footwork is terrific at times. Like he can go up against 2-3 players and really, really good going forward. But then it's just sometimes lacking that end product. And then obviously it's the defensive side. It's the player that's always promised so much with the Portuguese youth sides. He was part of the team that won like the under 17 Euros, and he was part of the team that won the under 19 Euros. He was a real like sort of a big figure amongst those sides, in that he was always there, he was always involved. But then as I said, senior football, he's become a little bit of a nomad in recent years, going here, there and everywhere, and not really establishing himself. So again, this sort of move to a club where he knows he'll be second choice but it's a way out for him, I suppose. And if reports are true, is that although he didn't play, he didn't hold down a consistent starting place in Wolves, is that he enjoys being in England. Obviously, he wants to play in the Premier League, where you hear it time and time again, players say it's the best league in the world, and he's probably looking at Everton and thinking, if I can get a good run of games together under a fan base that, if you are playing well, will get behind you, push himself again, then it might be the springboard that he needs. Whereas he knows really Sporting, who are playing, they'll be playing again in the Champions League group stages. They're probably just looking, thinking he's just not defensively at the level that they need. You got to think, when they go into those Champions League games, they're going in as the underdog, no matter really who they play against. A club from outside the top 5 leagues, defensively they need to be at it, because they'll be coming up against top quality. But I mean, we'll see.
I've heard rumours that he can play, that he might be both-footed. Is there options that he can play on both sides, or is he predominantly down that left-hand side?
No, yeah, he's predominantly on the left-hand side. I don't think he's only been brought in to have sort of cover on that right-hand side, to be honest. I didn't see it happen really at Sporting, but obviously they've got real strength there on that right-hand side, and Pedro Porro, Sky, players like that. But yeah, I think it'll be predominantly left-sided. When he was at Famalicão, I think they played a couple of times with more like a 4-3-3 at times, and he actually played further forward as like a left winger, or at times as like a left midfielder. When they did opt to play with a back 4, but usually whether they were playing in a back 3 or a back 5, he'd play on the left-hand side, left wing back. I do think it makes sense for him to be pushed a little bit further forward, because the left wing back, it's a role that it's almost sort of like, you feel like at times it's players who aren't defensively sound enough to play at left back, but are probably not good enough going forward to play left wing. So teams that play sort of a back 3 or a back 5, they think, well, there's the sort of middle ground. And that's exactly what Vinagre strikes me as, is someone that is, capable going forward. He's not one of those fullbacks where they cross the halfway line and you think, doesn't know what he's about to do next. He's more than capable. But then again, defensively, he's I think he's improved sort of like his one-on-ones from what I've seen of him. But it's more so, I think it's not what he's like sort of with the ball and in those sorts of duels. It's more so like his concentration and his like positioning. So there'll be times when, especially if the play's over on the other side, he can drift out of position. He can sort of he's not switched on 100% of the time. He leaves gaps behind, which obviously, if you've got that switch on, you've got a midfielder or a defender that can sort of ping it, and it's not enough for him to sort of use his pace to get out of it at times. And you saw that at Sporting quite a bit. When they did have the ball, he was fine. He was more than capable. But again, he's playing for a team there that's in the top 3 of that league. Out of 18 teams, they're one of the 3 best. At Everton, that's not the case, depending on how Everton want to play going forward this season. But obviously, the back end of last season, we saw games where we had 25-30% possession, where the defenders have got to stay switched on all the time. That's my only sort of worry or concern. I feel like if he played in a real attacking side, it might be able to sort of get away with it a little bit more. But Yeah, I think predominantly a left-hand side player, definitely.
So what are his, you've mentioned he's better going forward, and you've sort of indicated it, defensively. So what are his other strengths and weaknesses, his more technical ones? Is he a good crosser of the ball? Just because obviously we have Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who's such an aerial presence.
Yeah. To be honest, I think he's he will say himself that he could probably get a few more assists than what he does. But he gets himself into the right areas, and if he's got the chance, he will try and whip the ball in or play like a nice pass. So I think his technical ability isn't really in question. He's got really good close ball control. Say his dribbling is very, very good for a fullback / wing back. He's up there, to be fair, with in terms of when the ball's at his feet. You're never really thinking he's going to take a loose touch or he's going to sort of give it away. He might try something and end up losing it, but that's different to just looking like he cannot control a football, which we do see sometimes with fullbacks. I think his on the ball stuff. We'll see how he sort of bounces back from not playing much for Sporting, which is obviously will have impacted him massively, because he'll have been looking at that and thinking that is a chance to go and develop and go and learn, play sort of in his own country at the academy that he sort of, he came through the Sporting Academy, and showcase sort of putting balls in the box. But then you look at his statistics and you think, well, he doesn't get many assists, he doesn't get many goals, but also he doesn't play a lot of football. So the two, obviously go hand in hand. If he used to be given a consistent run of minutes, then perhaps we'd be able to see him showcase those talents better. But it wasn't the case. Again, at Everton, depending on how many minutes he gets, for him, it'll have to be one of those where as soon as he goes into the team, he makes an impact. He's able to get up the other side of the pitch, maybe take on a man, put a cross in, and sort of show, this is what I'm able to do. This is what I've got in my skill set. Don't think he's in a position where he can come in and not really do much for 5-6 games and think, oh, I'm just settling in, because he simply won't have the time. Barring a Mykolenko injury, which we're all hoping obviously doesn't happen. Someone that looked like, when he first arrived, he had his own critics, but now it looks like he's starting to settle in, and will hopefully sort of have a really good season next season. If Vinagre can go there and train, and I mean, he'd be training with Ashley Cole and Leighton Baines is around the team as well still. So not bad left backs to have to look up to, but I mean, we'll see if he's able to sort of push, for that position. But I do think it'll be more just Lampard making sure that whoever comes in, if Mykolenko is out, it's an attacking threat, it's an attacking presence, which gives a big indication to how Lampard wants to sort of approach next season if Everton are to play in a back 3/back 5, which looks like it'll be the case.
So obviously you mentioned about the move. Do you think, personally, where he is at the minute, like you said, he's been chucked around a little bit. Do you think Everton for him is the right move in terms of his career? Like you said, when the fans are behind you, it's brilliant, but it's also fair to say this is a tough place to come as well if you're not up to the standard that fans expect.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one, because if I was going to say, if you would have asked me if the Sporting move was the right one, I'd have said yeah, and I did. When that move was fit, I thought that just ticks all the boxes. It makes complete sense, and then it didn't work out. So, what do I know? But with this move, as you say, I think if he can get the confidence and he can play, for the crowd when they're on your side and how passionate they are, and really, I think if any crowd in the world will help you keep switched on, it's the Everton crowd. They won't let you lose concentration. Try our best not to, anyway. But yeah, I think for him it might just be maybe realigning and readjusting his expectations, because he'll have went to Sporting thinking that he would have been a starter. Then he's had the disappointing season. He's had to sit down with his agents and think, right, okay, what's next? Now Everton in 4 years is for him, he won't have been thinking this was the next move after that. For although had a poor season last season, such a big club, a Premier League club, guaranteed its sort of status for next year, to come in he will have to know, right, his place in the pecking order, but there's not that much depth there. Think if you can go there, you can put some performances together. You at least you're asking the question. At least you're sort of knocking on the door, and it might give him a little bit of hope. Whereas with Sporting, it felt like it was just done. There was this sort of sense of inevitability of, that as soon as the window opens, he's going to be leaving. And I don't know if anything else sort of happened behind closed doors, but I can see it. I can see it working, and again, I can see how it wouldn't work. So I think it's one of those moves you've just got to look at and think, look, on paper, is it the most exciting transfer in the world? No, but it's a cheap loan. It's a player who's played in the Premier League. It's a player that Kevin Thelwell knows, a lot. I think Thelwell signed him when he was at Wolves. It's a player who's got experience playing in England and knows what it's like to play for, like a passionate fan base as well as he did at Wolves. And it's a chance for him to sort of try and maybe re-establish himself. I keep saying he's 23, seems so young, but he's already done so much. He's already played for so many different clubs. He's already sort of maybe failed to establish himself in a couple of different clubs, a couple of different countries. I think he really needs this move to work, and Everton need it to work as well. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. But as soon as he signs, that's it. You've just got to get 100% behind him and back him. And if he does come in and play in those EFL Cup games, or the early FA Cup games, or plays in games in the Premier League where Lampard wants us to have, 55, 60, 65% possession and actually take the game, and he can play and act as an attacking threat, gets an assist or two behind him, a bit of optimism starts to grow then, and you start thinking, hold on, we might be able to iron out some of his kinks, and we could have a successful loan period. And with the fact that it's an option to buy and not an obligation to buy, it's, if it doesn't work, we'll have paid the wages for a year of someone who, as I keep saying, I don't know what the figure will be, but it will not be a lot. It will not be a lot of money. So yeah, I mean, I know that's not the ideal way to look at it. You're already predicting, how much will we have wasted by the time this loan's ended. But no, I'm behind him, and I'm hoping for a surprise if the deal gets done.
So we've mentioned what this would do for him. I know it's a bit hard. You did sort of highlight that towards the end. It depends on how much it costs, and it's a loan. Do you think this could be a good move for Everton? Do you think it could be one of those that the club look back at because it's a loan deal and think could be a steal, especially with, like you said, it's an option, not an obligation? So
yeah, there's definitely less pressure. There's less pressure on Everton. I mean, I've already saw the fact that you only get so many. I think it's 4, 2 domestic and 2 international loan spots, and Everton clearly need to address other areas of the pitch. The fact that they're using one of the loan spots on a position that's, I don't think anyone thought it was sort of a critical area. It shows that maybe they've got their eye on other positions and other spots and other sort of transfer targets. And this is something that the club feel comfortable in doing, in that this is a player who wants and needs a move out. This is a player that our staff in Thelwell has got a relationship with, knows what he's capable of. He'll have saw it, time and time again for Wolves. Saw maybe the inconsistency and thought, if we can just sort of nail down that consistency, it will it could turn out to be a good move. But it could be one that we look back on and think, that it was a bit, despondent at the time with what wasn't exactly a move that was rife with optimism. But sometimes those deals are the ones that will surprise you, and sometimes it's the really, really high profile players that we sign, the ones that we go out and sign 30, 35 million. And then, a couple of months later, we're already looking to get them off the wage bill, which, so to be honest, I know I'm speaking about this a bit more like an Evertonian than an actual journalist, but I think this is one that I haven't got massive concerns with, because I do think whether it works or whether it doesn't work, it won't be one of the biggest successes of Everton's recent history, I don't think, and it won't be one of our biggest mistakes either. It'll just be sort of somewhere in the middle. If he can come in and give a bit of I keep speaking as if, you know, if Michalenko gets injured or this and that, but even just to come in and just give him time to rest, you know, bring a little bit of freshness. It's a player who will be at the club, especially sort of come the winter time when the World Cup's on. He'll still be working with Everton. You know, he won't be going anywhere. So yeah, I've always got optimism. You know, but to be honest, I've been saying for ages, Everton should look to the Premier League more. I didn't necessarily have this signing as one down, but again, we'll see. We'll see. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, like you said, it sounds pretty like low risk. If worse comes to worse, low reward. So it's not like you said, it's not the worst signing we've ever spent money on. That is all my questions now. I just want to thank you so much for coming on and giving us a bit of a look at what could be our future backup left back or even left back / left winger. So thank you for coming on, mate. It's been a pleasure chatting to you.
No problem. Apologies for the constant sniffling and nose blowing, but I think this cold's getting the better of me.
Oh, don't worry, it's going around, mate. I've had a blocked nose for about a week, so don't worry. And don't forget, guys, to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and comment down below your thoughts. You can also check out Aaron and Proxima Jornada. The link will be in the description down below as well, so go check that out. And I'll see you guys all very soon.